Pink Sock Podcast, your go-to destination for a wild and unpredictable ride through the realms of music, comedy, cannabis culture, and beyond. With your host, the fearless, the irreverent, Mike Usenik, presenting eclectic, entertaining, enlightening, surprising content. Join in the fun, push boundaries, challenge conventions, explore the spectrum of human experience. We won't shy away from any topic. Entertainment, exploration, connection. Join us.
Welcome to Pink Sock Podcast, Dustin. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, buddy. I really like that intro. Very soothing. Very soothing.
Thanks. A friend of mine made it.
Yeah, that voice. I just want her around all the time.
Right? I can make love to that voice. Shout out to Katie for doing that.
Nice job, Katie. Oh, that's a real person. It sounds
She's
AI. It's so good.
That's what I love about her. She's the human AI robot is what we call her.
That's what we're looking for in a person.
Right. So I'm glad to finally do this. I've been seeing you on YouTube and I love your comedy. I wanted to have you on because I read your biography on your website and you're like the human equivalent of like a video game. You're mastering all the side quests.
Side quest. Oh, this is interesting. What do you mean by side quest?
You started off, well, you didn't start off, but you was a boxer at one time.
Yes, when I was a child, my parents put me into boxing because, it was easy. It's kind of a lazy way of beating your kid. You know what I mean? Like you could just get something wrong, put him in the ring with Bubba. That was, it was good though. I liked it. Taught me. Most kids are playing t-ball. I was like, I had a hook and an overhand right before I was 6.
Your mom should have had a bumper sticker that says, "My son could beat the shit out of your honor student."
Exactly. It was great. Yeah, it worked well with bullies because I was very small. So I think they wanted to kind of like, kind of scrawny kid. So they wanted to kind of toughen me up. Texas is like, kind of they're animals out there. So they had to, they prepared me for the wild, if you will, of junior high and all that stuff.
I love your joke you do where you say, I live in Texas in a little town called Racism. That shit's hilarious.
Especially now. It's it's gotten a little more of a town of racism than it used to be.
They have more than one.
More than one. There's more than one. There's 3, I think, but they're really bad. So
how did you go from the boxing ring to being a missionary in Chile? Like how did
that was there was a Mormon girl in my high school, very cute, from Utah. And next thing you know, we're just together, and then we broke up. And then I think to get back at her, I was like, I'll be a super Mormon. And so I joined the church and became a missionary, and never saw her again. But I showed her. I had the name tag, the bicycle, and the whole thing.
You're like, I'll become the best at what you believe in.
Yeah. And then I lasted about 6 years. That's all I could do. And then I was just like tapped out, got to New York, and went to art school, and then started doing stand-up and all that, and kind of my morals went out the Mormon window, so I didn't stay that long, but 6 was a pretty good run.
6 is a good run for any religion.
I think so. Yeah, it's like that's like a master's degree.
You're the master's degree of Mormonism.
Yeah, I know all the stuff. I know enough to be like, okay, I can move on now.
Was comedy always something that you've wanted to do, or is that just something that just fell on your lap, kind of like the missionary thing?
It's definitely not something I wanted to do, but I always love the idea of what comedy was. And my mom was always had like Richard Pryor and like Cheech and Chong records and stuff like that. So comedy was, my family's pretty funny. Everybody laughs and is inappropriate and dark and stuff like that. So I feel like humor was something that kind of got us through hard times. And like, I feel like, and then as far as the idea of a stand-up comedian, I think it was Sam Kinison when I was like in junior high. I saw that guy and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is incredible. And that's the first time I realized that you could kind of use kind of the rock star music thing and kind of incorporate it into a stand-up performance, and I think I was blown away by that. And yeah, I always had the bug to do it, and but I just never had the balls. But my first stand-up show was actually at a Mormon college in Idaho, and BYU, Idaho. Before, I think it was called Ricks College, which just sounds like a terrible college. But then they changed it to BYU, Idaho. But yeah, I did a talent show, and I just put together 6 minutes. Some of it was hacky, some of it was good, and I got a standing ovation. And it was like a lot of kids. I've been chasing that set ever since I started. I haven't. I felt like my first set was a standing O. I mean, that's pretty hard to live up to that. So I've been chasing the dragon.
Bro, so you should probably go back and do some of your new material. Show them what you're like now.
Well, I kind of did, because I did a dry bar special, and it was in Provo, Utah. And so kind of, it was like the last time I was in Provo, Utah, I was at the Missionary Training Center learning how to manipulate people into believing the Book of Mormon and learn Spanish. And so that was the last time I was in Provo. And then I came back 20 plus years later and did a stand-up special. And I did a lot of Mormon jokes and played around and stuff. So it was like that was about as close as I could have gotten to getting back to the Mormon talent show, was doing stand up in Provo for a special.
Isn't that weird how life does a full circle like that? That's
Oh
fucking
yeah,
cool.
yeah, it was
Like,
great. I loved it.
that is awesome. And comedy's kind of like Mormonism. You're just manipulating people into laughing at things they don't want to laugh about.
Oh yeah, it's another cult. Stand up is definitely a cult. We're all
We need to make our own Bible.
yeah. Our cult leader is, instead of Joseph Smith, it's like Bill Burr or something. Like we
George
all have
Carlin, bro. That's our
George
guy.
Carlin. George Carlin would be up there for sure. Kennison would be mine actually, but
You
as
didn't
far as
listen to a lot of
living guys,
You didn't listen to a lot of Carlin while you were a Mormon,
I
did you?
I did. I was kind of like an edgy Mormon, because I was a convert. So it's like, the kids who grew up in the church, they didn't have those those inclinations to seek out edgy stuff. But I've lived of the world before I was a Mormon, so I knew what was out there. But I love Carlin. I saw Carlin live. I saw him do 5 specials. I got to see him live. Phenomenal. I met him, got to talk to him about stand up. He was incredibly kind. If he knew you were a comic, then he would spend time with you and just like talk to you, answer any questions. Like, he was fantastic. He was
That dude was amazing, and I am
was
so
amazing.
jealous.
It still holds up too. Like his stand up. I mean, when you watch some of those clips and stuff, it sounds like he's talking about right now, like what is happening in the world. Like, it's so good.
So what is some of the good advice that Carlin gave you?
Basically, just kind of stop worrying about what the industry wants, and just like, don't be afraid to kind of like stick your finger in their eye and keep on poking. Like, if you have something that's edgy, don't feel like you can't do it because you'll get in trouble, or like it's against what is happening, as far as the industry culture. And just basically, yeah, just kind of he was just talked to a few of us, and he was just like, yeah, just, man, if you believe in it, then it's worth saying on stage. And so, yeah, just really good stuff, just kind of inspirational, just like, because we all think, we don't know if we're going down the right path, and and so when you get to be in the midst of somebody like that, it's really, really inspiring. So I loved it.
Yeah, I also do stand up, but not at the level that you're doing it. I just do local shows and open mics. And Carlin wasn't just a comedian, he was a fucking philosopher.
He was. And but what's great about Carlin is he started out just a corny stand-up, and then evolved into this great thing, which is great because a lot of, you know, I've talked to a lot of comics, and like, especially out in Ohio, where you're in Ohio, right?
Yeah, I'm in Ohio.
Yeah, and it's like everybody, like, it's funny, like they'll shit on the comic that has the guitar, or they'll make fun of a guy that's, not, as good as everybody else. But eventually, you can become great and shed all the hacky stuff. You can get to another level, and that's what he was, because he was just, this kind of corny, hippy dippy weatherman, just doing stuff that was, just getting cheap laughs. And then he just like blew up and just went another direction, and just really, but it took a while. His later stuff is the best. Like because his observational stuff is, like I always say, it's Seinfeld on crack. Like, it's just like, he just, his observational stuff is incredible. Like, whenever I would see Carlin do a bit, I was like, there's nothing left. Like, there's no meat on the bone. He would just dry that premise out to pieces. And but the later stuff is where he's really kind of getting into death and politics and hypocrisy and all that stuff. So I love his last like 4 specials are just I think his best work, which a lot of times you say like with Pryor, there's people like that. You're like, the first 2 were great, and the second, but his stuff is like all the way through.
And
I think Innocent was the opposite. Yeah.
The thing I love about Carlin is like he went from, like you said, the hippy dippy shit, but like it wasn't a smooth transition. He was kind of like a martyr for comics in a way because he risked getting arrested multiple times.
Yeah, that's a funny story because it's like Lenny Bruce is the guy.
Oh yeah.
Lenny Bruce he's our Lord and Savior when it comes to like uncensored comedy. And it's funny, it's Carlin, he kind of wanted to be a part of that edge. And he got the first time he got arrested because he was at a Lenny Bruce show. And Lenny Bruce and people, were at the audience, and a few people were kind of getting arrested, and he kind of was like, "Yeah, I want to get arrested." And, and then it was kind of like, "I got arrested at a Lenny Bruce show," and then I think after that is when he kind of, went out of his way to kind of push the envelope, which is great. I mean, the idea that one would get arrested for words, is just ridiculous. But it's a different time,
Let's just say Lenny Bruce is the Old Testament of comedy, and George Carlin is the New Testament of comedy.
Fair enough. He's also Jewish. That makes sense. So, that works perfectly. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think Carlin was Catholic, so that works perfect. Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. That's a joke within itself, bro.
Right? Exactly. It's kind of the back of the room joke, but we'll take it.
But the thing with Lenny, though, is like if a lot of people don't get to watch his shit that often because it's hard to find Lenny Bruce material because he never made it to the fame level other than underground until later on.
Yeah. I mean, How to Talk Dirty and Influence People is a book. It's basically he put out, and I recommend that. That's, you can see kind of his written, the brilliance of his written jokes and stuff. Because he wasn't allowed to perform a lot of places, and then towards the end, it was all about talking about his court case. He would get on stage and just talk about the trial that he was on against obscenity and stuff. And so it kind of was able and then the drugs were bad and stuff. And so he wasn't able to kind of like pop in the way that he should have, because he was a brilliant comic. But it was also very like, it's very capsule time of like the 60s and stuff. He's very beatnik. Like it's very, very specific to that era,
A lot of his stuff is dated, which the difference between him and Carlin is Carlin's isn't dated. His
not
is
as much. No, yeah. I mean, the beatnik era was very specific, to bongo drums and, black,
one of my favorite Carlin
turtlenecks,
jokes. One of my favorite Carlin jokes, though, when it comes to like his later stuff, like I think it was his last special, where he's like talking about swearing on a Bible. And he's like, what if it's an upside down backwards Chinese Bible with half the pages missing and you don't speak Chinese? Does it still count?
Yeah. He's great. Well, that's the thing is like, that was such a pleasure to be able to be like a new comic and then go see somebody like that. Because there's not a lot of people left that you could, that inspire you at that level of like, like if you play guitar, it's like seeing Jimi Hendrix or something, it's like, it's a guy that, is the top of the top. And so that was pretty great because like I would have like a religious bit in my head, or I'd have a joke or two, and then I'd go see Carlin and it would, change everything for me and be like, oh, okay, you got to take it this direction and you got to open it up, because he would just really dissect premises like I'd never seen anybody do. And so he always made me a better comic. And that's rare when you watch a comic and they just make you a better comic just by watching them. And so that's what I think Carlin did for a lot of us.
And with Carlin, did you say you got to see him live do several specials? Or
yeah, I saw him. I think I saw 3 actual specials, and then I saw the same material 2 other times. So it was like I'd see one show where it was like he's working it out, where he's got the paper on the stool and he's working it out. Then I would see that actual special filmed at the Beacon in New York City, and I saw 3 specials there.
Which ones?
You're All Diseased.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, the one after that, and then the last one. So yeah, I don't know what they're called, but
and You're All Diseased, wasn't that the one that he did after 9/11?
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah.
because he had a special originally planned for 2001. I don't know if you knew this about Carlin, but he had a special that he had recorded a few days before 9/11 in New York.
Oh, wow.
And he mentioned how he loves national tragedies and when a lot of people die, when a plane hits a building, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And very Carlin-esque. He didn't mean anything negative by it, but he predicted 9/11 kind of in New York.
Yeah, I mean, if you paid attention to anything that was happening, I mean, a lot of that could have been predicted because there was a lot going on that we were, George W. days we weren't paying attention to. But yeah, I mean, I lived in New York during that time, so it's like, it definitely there was, when it happened, we kind of, saw some of it pieced together. But yeah, he was a prophet almost, He was
Not
just
to
like
get too conspiracy theorist, because
Yeah.
I believe that was all an inside job. Well, most people do. But like
well, it was inside, to
our
an
government knew
extent.
it was going to happen regardless, and they didn't do anything about it. Is
Yeah,
what
well, there was some oversight,
Yeah.
that it led to it, but they could have stopped it. That's about as far as I go with it.
Yeah.
It's like you don't make relationships with Saudi Arabia and expect good things to happen. So, you know what I mean? You date a crazy chick, she's gonna key your car. Like it's just, it's like that's, they didn't think things far enough out. It's like, come on, it's like obvious some shit's gonna go down.
That
So
reminds me of ever watch Jimmy Carr?
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carr.
Carr. I like Jimmy Carter better, but yeah, Jimmy Carr. Yeah.
Jimmy Carter, the president, was hilarious.
He was a peanut guy. His brother was hilarious. Yeah.
No, the funny thing, and I'm gonna say hi to people in the chat because I'm accidentally missing them out. Hey, David Morris. Hey, Dustin Schultz. What's up, Larissa?
So Dustin, what's up, buddy?
Hi, Linda. But where was I at? Autism.
We all have it. Every comic is on some sort of spectrum. I think that's
Some sort. That's why I laugh at my intro, because she says, "Join the spectrum of human experience," and I'm like, "Oh, you could have used better wording than that."
You can't say that word anymore. It's like there's certain words you can't say. Spectrum, Trump. There's certain words you just can't say like you used to.
Like I have a bit that I can never use because I use the other term for little people. You know that one.
Yeah, sure. I live with a little person, so I know this word a lot. Yeah.
Well, I lost my. Now you're going to understand where I'm coming from. All right, I lost my virginity to somebody who had that.
You can say
when I was
dwarf.
19.
You can say dwarf. Yeah, that's fine.
When I was 19, I lost my virginity to her. Now I can't say I lost my virginity at 19 to a little person because you'd want me on a list.
Yeah. Well, just say dwarf. Then it sounds very Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I lost my virginity to a fucking woman with a battle axe.
Sounds way better than little person. Just say dwarf.
Sounds like my sex life is a Tolkien novel.
Yeah. You get the Viking facial hair. Just like, yeah, they'll buy it.
That is fucking great. All I imagine is me just fucking one of them little ugly trolls from like Magic the Gathering games.
Yeah. Yeah, don't act like you don't play all those games. I know what's going on.
I do. I look like one of them guys. I'm one of them like darker comics though when it comes to like comedy, because we have Jehovah's Witnesses in my neighborhood.
Sure.
And
I dated one of those too, yeah.
And I respect everyone's religion unless you try to force it onto me.
Sure.
And I'm waiting for them to knock on my door because I have memorabilia from different religions, and I have this.
Nice.
The Levian Satanic Bible.
I mean, basically that is religion, by the way, just so you know.
It actually is. It's legally considered a religion, but they're the only one that gets taxed.
Oh, hilarious. Yeah. That makes sense. Like, Satan's the numbers are a little fudged on Satan's, accounting.
Could you imagine being the accountant for a Satanist?
It's a good sketch. There we go. Let's write it.
No, I actually have a bit that I'm working on about Satanism, and I would like to get my facts straight before I make jokes, because I don't want them coming after me. You know what I mean? like
I think they use the PR. I think they're okay with it. That's the upside of being into Satanism, because they don't care. There's it's nothing's going to get you in trouble. That's encouraged.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we believe you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, that's the best part. Yeah. You go to church, no pants on, nobody cares. It's like it's Satanism. Like I don't give a shit.
Have you ever heard of this religion? One of my co-hosts, from time to time, she is one. The Pastafarians.
I think I have actually.
Have you
Yeah,
dated one?
I've not. I want to though. I think
My
that's
man
amazing.
over here is like collecting Pokemon religions, like dating women of every faith. Have you been with a Satanist? Is that what?
I'm a comic. I mean, yeah, I think I have. I don't think she was out, but she was definitely a Satanist, and she was a little wild. So yeah,
Oh, so she was one of the ones that actually believed and worshipped the man. Okay, that's
just saying. Witch, Satanism, whatever. I did something in that ballpark.
dude. I love it. I love it. Oh, by the way, I would like you to know that we go live every Monday and Wednesday at this time. So if you ever want to come back on after this,
Sure.
you're more than
Yes.
welcome.
I'm already having a good time. Yeah.
But it's wild. But I do have to ask: are you 420 friendly?
I'm not, but I used to be. Let me explain. Well, I'm sober. I'm kind of straight edge.
I'm proud of
16
you.
years. I haven't touched anything really that makes the brain go woohoo. So yeah, I used to have a good time. My mom smoked a lot of weed when I was a kid. I think that's why
I can
was,
tell. I can
yeah,
tell.
I can tell. Yeah, this is what happens. You get a comedian, out of yeah. I sometimes it's a little much for me, the weed culture now, because when I smoked, we just smoked weed. Now you guys have holidays and merch. It's like calm it down, guys. It's it's just to kind of soothe the soul. Like stop making it like an event. Like just smoke it and just enjoy it. But it's like whenever I
It's
see
getting
people,
too strong. Too.
yeah, it's there's so much involved. It's just like back, when I was doing it, it was like if there was no seeds, it was a good bag of weed. That's all we cared about. Like now it's like this other thing, and but I enjoy people that are high. Like I think they're a good time. Like I performed in front of, like, it's funny, out here in California. There'll be shows that are in dispensaries and that have stages and stuff. And so everybody, instead of drinking the 2 drink minimum, there's like a 2 puff minimum. Everybody's smoking weed. And so you're on stage, and I don't smoke, but I'll get a contact high, which I think is legal. Like I don't care about a contact high. I'm like that guy that you can smoke in your car and I'll roll the window down. I'm not going to give you shit for it. So as long as I'm not smoking, I'm fine. But I've been in shows like that where I'm just like, I mean, just after like 4 minutes of smoke clouds coming at you, I'm as high as they are. And then
You're
it's just,
California sober
yeah,
at that point.
yeah. It's like, but I do like the idea of high audiences. They're fun. Sometimes it takes them a second. They miss a few things, but then when they get it, boy, they won't stop getting it. You're like, all right, dude, I got to move on.
That's why I only do comedy for stoners, because they'll laugh.
Yeah, they'll laugh. They'll laugh before they even told a joke. So it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, you don't know how good you are though with a high audience, because they laugh too freely.
When it comes to weed, though, like I stated, it's way too strong now. Like I had this weed one time. Buddy of mine's like, this is full spectrum. I'm like, whoa, I'm already autistic. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know like how much
Yeah.
further we're gonna take this shit, bro.
Yeah, it got interesting because I remember when, the hydro was popular, it started happening, and like different, White Widow and, fruit punches and whatever they were doing. And it was just like, it started getting, and that's what was kind of cool about it. It's like, that is kind of cool. You could kind of pick your high.
Yeah.
And so before it was just like, however however it affected you is however it affected you. Now it's like, I kind of want to like smoke some weed and like be productive. What's that weed? I want to do this where I kind of want to just almost black out. What's that weed? So it's like, I like the idea that you can kind of choose your high. That is pretty cool. I'm just not crazy
for
about
medicinal
everybody.
reasons too.
Yeah, I'm just not crazy about everybody just wearing, pot leaf shirts and being dorky about it. Just, and then the fact that it's legal in certain
Hey, don't
places.
pick on me like that. God damn it.
Yeah, I got a joke. I saw a guy that had a weed shirt and a weed hat and weed socks. Like, I get it. You live with your mom. You know what I mean? Like,
I actually do. Fuck you.
Hey, I would if I could. I'll tell you. If she lived out in LA, I would definitely live with my mom. The basement sounds amazing.
Dude,
But
in this economy
yeah.
we're in, though, we either have
Hey,
to live
I
with
would.
multiple
I
people
would.
or we have to be polyamorous.
Well, that's how they do it in like other countries. Everybody lives with their parents till they're like 40. Like that's just how they do it. Yeah.
Or they marry
Italy.
multiple people.
Yeah, there you go. That works.
But it's just fucking wild to me, bro. Like how much shit's getting. Like I went to fill up my car the other day, and I have an electric, dude, and it was expensive.
There you go. There you go.
No, my car though, it's gas and electric, so it does
Oh, full
still.
hybrid. Yeah,
It's
that's
a little
smart.
hybrid.
That's the way to go. I just have a straight gas, but I think a hybrid's the way to go.
Bro, my price at tags though is triple what it is for everyone else.
See, it's always something. They always get you somewhere.
I'm
It's
like,
really,
shit.
it's
And
all.
I hate these people. They're like, vote for this person to lower gas price. I mean, no, I don't. I'm not going to vote for a guy that already hired gas prices. What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, yeah, they all. It's all high. It doesn't matter who who you vote for. It's always really high, and then it gets low, and then oh, that guy's great, and then you vote for the next guy. He raises it. Like it never changes. And for people to think that like one guy's responsible is ridiculous. It's all of them. It's
By
never
the way,
one
my
guy.
autism's making a full turnaround. We're going back to Pastafarianism.
I like it. Apostafari. There you
go. Now their belief is very interesting. You should date you one.
Yeah.
I mean, they're easy to find. Their religious hat is a colander.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yes.
That's so funny. So
and they believe in the flying spaghetti monster and his noodly appendage.
You know what's amazing about that? They get a tax break. But Satanism has to pay.
Well, you know what's ironic about the Church of Satan is right now they're having sort of a feud with the Satanic Temple. Because the Satanic Temple is like, you're not a real religion because you're paying taxes. And the Church of Satan's like, well, you should be paying taxes, motherfucker. That's what I'm like, holy shit.
I will say that Satanism definitely has the best music. You know what I mean?
They do.
The Christians have a few Christmas songs that kind of get us through the holidays, but I tell you, Satanism is rocking it out. So we'll give you guys that.
Fucking, they got Sabbath. Yeah. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you guys kind of disowned Ozzy late, but the early Sabbath, there you go. That's what I'm talking about.
My question though is, when you're a Mormon, how did you give up that music, or did you sneak it in?
Well, I mean, I'm a kind of all or nothing guy. So when I come from like drug addicts and police being called at the house in a crazy kind of environment as a child. And so Mormonism or Mormon families are pretty like loving, and like there's a dad and mom and people, they have you over for dinner and you eat meatloaf, you're playing Uno, you know what I mean? Like it's a nice environment when you come from something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so so that's kind of how they got me. And so I kind of like was like enamored by that. And then as a Mormon, I was like, if I'm going to do this, like when I was a missionary, I was just like, I'm going to be a great missionary. And so I just was able to kind of lock in. I mean, there were a few times I slipped in, some music here and there, but I was pretty hardcore. I mean, I sold some of my, CD collection. We had CDs back then, and so I sold a bunch of great CDs and all that stuff. But I enjoyed it because it kind of got me into, because I was into rock and punk and all that stuff. But it's like it kind of got me more of appreciation for like jazz and classical music and stuff. And so that was kind of what we could listen to. So I really kind of went down that road of like, I don't know if I would embrace Coltrane or like, or Beethoven or Mozart and stuff. So it was actually kind of cool. I have a very well-rounded music interest because of it. And so, yeah, I was okay with it. It's like, it's sometimes nice to take a break. You can only listen to so much Pearl Jam or whatever that was happening at the time. And so it's like, it was, I didn't mind it.
So Mormons listen to jazz?
Yeah, jazz is okay. As long as there's no like lyrics in it, like
I'm pretty sure jazz is what Satan actually listens to, bro. Like I love jazz, by the way. I'm just giving you shit.
No, I mean that was like 20 something years ago, so you can rib me all you want. It's not like I'm active now. So
did you know that the original, well, not the original, but the first ever album to have the parental advisory sticker on it was Frank Zappa?
Oh, my favorite. I love Frank Zappa.
His album Jazz from Hell, which was all instrumental, was the first album to have parental advisory explicit lyrics on it.
Oh,
and there was no lyrics.
That's great. Well, Link Ray was like that too. That was like a song that like made everybody freak out. Like it was like just because the distortion on the guitar was gonna make kids just like have sex and have babies, and like it was just like the distortion on a guitar they never heard before.
That's fucking wild. Have they not listened to Beethoven? That shit's pretty metal.
I think so. Yeah.
Beethoven's the original metal artist, but he
I
wasn't able to
agree.
hear it.
I agree. Yeah, I'm big Beethoven fan. Absolutely.
Have you heard? Do you listen to Trans-Siberian Orchestra? They
I
do.
have, yeah. That
They,
stuff is amazing. Their Christmas stuff is great. Well,
it's the only Christmas music we're like, I think they're onto something.
well, they're great. I mean, Mormon Tab, they nail it as far as a choir goes, but Trans is great. Trans is great. Listen to me. But it's good. It's good. What they do with the guitar is phenomenal. Like to make it sound almost like some other instrument. But it's great. Yeah.
Well, they do Beethoven stuff too.
Oh, okay. I'm more versed in their Christmas music. My girl's family's very Christmas friendly. We cut down the tree, drag it in the snow. They live in Maine, and like we make a whole. So I'm all about. That's the thing is I can never be a true Satanist. I do respect some of the things, but I like Christmas, and so I can't. I wouldn't give up Christmas, but I'd be like I'll be a Satanist, but you got to give me Christmas.
Christmas actually, it's not rooted in Satanism, but it is a pagan holiday.
Yeah, the Germans or something, right?
Which pagan is technically the terminology they used before they used Satanism. So, I mean, you could be.
Well, the way they've commercialized it, I'm all on board. I like it. I'm a big fan.
I think their Christmas would be what? Black Mass instead of Christmas.
Yeah. We need Christmas. The way this world is so shitty. Like so much of the year is just awful. It's like it's good to have a little Christmas,
I think we should adopt Krampus though to scare the kids into being better because I think Cole is like kids
that's a good movie, Krampus. That's great.
It's based on a real theology of a demon.
I love it. Yeah, that's a great story. I love it.
We should tell kids that if you don't,
Sure.
if you don't behave, Santa's not going to give you coal. There's going to be a demonic Santa break into our house and eat you.
Well, I love those videos where they have like some dude dress up like the Grinch and just come in and take all the presents and then like just take off and then they start beating up on the Grinch and like they're crying and going crazy and it's like just somebody's uncle, but he's got like the full Grinch outfit on and he's just taking all the toys because the kids were fighting that day. They decided to traumatize them with some fucking dude
I've seen
in a
that
Grinch
shit.
outfit. It is the most amazing thing ever. I love. That's why I can't be a parent because I'm only a dog parent because I would do stuff like that because that's hilarious. It's like if you're gonna act up, well, I'll show you.
There's nothing wrong with a little bit of healthy trauma. There's nothing.
If you want to be a comedian, I'll tell you that. Trauma is the prerequisite.
Did you know they made a Grinch horror movie recently?
Oh, did they? I think I heard something about that. I'm a big horror guy. I think I saw something about that.
It's called The Mean One. It's starring the guy that plays Art the Clown in Terrifier.
Oh wow, is it out yet? No, it's not out yet.
It's out. It's called Mean One.
Oh, I'll check it out. The first Terrifier is phenomenal. The second one's like, it was great in a lot of ways, but I don't know how you felt about it. After 2.5 hours, you're like, okay, man, we need to wrap this up.
I have a weird thing with movies like Terrifier. I want to watch them, but I'm not into like the gore porn side of horror.
Okay, well, that's what that is. So yeah, I get that's definitely. Well, the first one's perfect. It's especially for a $40,000 movie or however much it costs to make it. It's the perfect low budget horror film. Like they did such a great job.
Do you enjoy campy low budget horror films like the one that are comedic?
Yeah, I do. I'm kind of writing one, so yeah, I like that stuff. I love horror. The genre is so vast. Like you can, it can go from like Hereditary, which is like high budget, great, creepy, or old school Exorcist, and then or something like that where they're just stuck in the woods and a dude in a chainsaw. Like it doesn't matter to me, but I like little humor.
Or how about Evil Bong?
What's up?
Evil Bong. Have you seen those?
That sounds like that's more up your alley, but yeah, I like pop movies, weed movies. Yeah, Cheech and Chong movies, great. But
Tommy Chong is in this, by the way. It's a horror movie with Tommy Chong in it.
Okay, I would watch that. Yeah.
The first one, he wasn't in the other 9 because the guy that created it has a problem with sequels. He's the guy that does Puppet Master.
Oh, okay, that's a great one. I saw that as a child.
So like Ginger Dead Man's in it and shit, but like Evil Bong's about these guys, and this will date this movie. It's about these guys that buy this haunted bong from a magazine, and when you smoke it, your soul goes into a stripper realm and they kill you.
Oh wow, that's exciting.
It's not as bad as Velocipaster. Have you seen that one?
No.
Bro, we need to have like a review of horrible horror movies, your opinion on them. Because this one, This one's about this preacher, kind of up your alley. He's a minister or whatever, a
Okay.
missionary. I don't know exactly what his terminology is. When he gets angry, he becomes a velociraptor that fights ninjas that are drug dealers.
Wow. I think there was some good drugs involved when they started writing that one. That is one hell of a drug party right there. And then,
What
okay,
ideas aren't
let's write.
taken?
Yeah, I love it.
What ideas are not taken? I think that's how people come up with like shit like Pastafarianism and all that shit.
Oh, yeah, yeah, right. Really? You think so? Yeah. You don't think drugs are involved when you're putting a spaghetti pot on your head? Yeah, I think
Not
that's
just that, but them people have a Bible. They wrote an entire Bible for the flying spaghetti monster,
wow.
complete with what their own heaven looks like, complete with their own prayer.
Dude, I live in the middle of Scientology. Like they're everywhere. Like there's these Scientologist buildings and they're so creepy. And then every time I walk by them, I'm like, it's like, I mean, I just don't know how it's still around that people are still involved in that. Like with Mormonism was I was a young kid. I was trying to, get out of this situation. Then I figured it out or whatever. Obviously I wasn't buying all of it all the time. I was just like, I need to get out of Texas. Santiago, Chile seems like a good time. Let's do this. And then I went and it got me into college, basically got me to New York, which got me to stand up. So I appreciate the journey that it gave me. But I just can't believe that like all these people are still in all these religions. Like there's all these cults and stuff. It's crazy. Like how people just stay in this stuff. Because at a certain point, like, when I was 18, my brain wasn't where it is now. So
Yeah.
I can analyze things and pick stuff apart. But when you're like 40 and you're still a Scientologist, it's like, and you're not in a Tom Cruise movie, it's like, all right, dude. It's not.
Scientology is a weird one, and a lot of the more recent ones are weird ones because any of them is because they're kind of the same thing. There's one guy who is a prophet who a god that they have came to them in a vision and they just created their own religion out of thin air. And other people are like, oh, yeah, we believe you. Like,
Yeah.
that's a
Well,
little weird to me.
Yeah, well, and Ron L. Hubbard, it's like, the idea he's a science fiction, writer and stuff. And so he could really create this world, he was skilled at that. So it's like,
And I'm not one to
yeah,
bash people for their religions because, like, certain religions, they use ancient scrolls of stories and stuff. But the thing is the people that they choose to worship are weird. It's usually prophets and not a god.
yeah, I bash everybody for their religion. They all deserve it. It's like, that's kind of why where we're at right now in America. It's like a religion is good. I'll go to church. My
Mhm.
girl, we'll get some, different places. As long as they're kind of like open minded, we're into it. And but to take religion and make it like your life, like how
Yeah, and
people,
hate people because of it.
yeah, or make rules and laws because of it. It's like that's when it's a lot. It's like that's when you've taken it too far. As long as you're just like, oh, it's something I believe in. I also like, E.E. Cummings and I like Scorsese movies and, I like, as long as because something that it's a part of your life, but it shouldn't control your life. That's how I feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's crazy about it is like with me, the way I view it is I'll read any religious book just to educate myself because there's some
Yeah.
form of history in there. In
Yeah.
every religion. However, you need to separate it from the real world.
Yeah, the Bible's a
No.
great read. It's a great read. I mean, the Old Testament's a little rough because after about 40 begats or whatever, you're like, all right, man, we got to get moving here and get to Moses. But it's all that stuff, the Quran, all that stuff is, there's something interesting in it, and you can and it's all about parables. You take like pieces of what these prophets were trying to convey and to live a better life and all that stuff. Buddha, everybody has something great to say. You just gotta
But what's weird
take
about
it.
Buddhism is Buddhism don't worship anything.
No, they don't. But they it's like it goes beyond worship. Like
Yeah.
it's, appreciating and taking things in and introspective and you come back as something in karma and all that stuff. So yeah, I think that's probably the best one, to be honest with you.
Buddhists are kind of interesting, and I'm not meaning this in a negative way. However, when it comes to Buddhism, it's more of like a self thing,
Yeah.
which is very reminiscent of that of the 1966 version of Satanism.
Whatever, man. I'm into all of it.
I think that's kind of funny though. Like even non-religions are connected.
Well, I mean, the devil's a central character, so give him his spin-off show. You know what I mean?
I
His
I have
due,
an idea.
he's earned his due. That's all I'm saying.
I had an idea for a skit I've always wanted to do. So it's now out in the universe on this podcast. So if anybody steals it,
They're gonna steal it. That's what people do.
they're going to. But like I want to create my own like skit where like this guy created his own Bible using journal entries from people in the past that God came to them. But there's going to be a huge section dedicated to Woodstock because of all the acid and he came to everyone then.
Well, that's, I mean, even like Mormonism, Joseph Smith, that prophet, like he basically wrote another Bible, and then they were just like, and it's funny because his whole thing was like, well, why would God talk to prophets in the past and not talk to prophets now? And his whole thing was like, why would he stop talking to us? And so that's how they kind of got that whole thing. And then his whole thing was like, well, Jesus was over in the Middle East. Who's to say he wasn't over in America hanging out with the Indians? And so that was like his other angle. So it was
So he thinks there's a Jesus on every continent. He just
I mean, there was drawings of like a white figure. So, it's like there's been some cave drawings and stuff from Native American. So that they were able to kind of pull from some of that later, not then, because nobody had that kind of technology of like looking stuff up. But, now that's how people like, try to like justify and like say, well, actually, this is, could be true because of this painting that this Native American did, and it had a white figure, but who says white? That's the problem too. It's like, really, Jesus is not white. Like if the Jesus was a dude, he looked like the guy you would stop at the TSA, but they make it like he's just like this blue-eyed, Greg Allman from the Allman Brothers or something. That's not what he looked like.
he looks like Tommy Chung from Up in Smoke. Like you walk into church, you're like, "Hey man, we're out of wine, but we got some of that forbidden fruit, man."
I think he had a little more of a tan though. I think he had, if Cheech and Tommy had a baby, that would be Jesus.
I didn't think we'd get into religious talk, but you were a missionary, or you liked it missionary. Which one was it?
Well, I was for 2 years. I was a missionary. Yeah, so I went down that road. I was young. It was like I was either gonna go drug crazy, get arrested, or I was gonna go the other way, and I went the other way. That's how I showed my parents. It's like, I'll show you, I'll be straight and not go crazy and all that stuff. So
I don't think that works that way.
it worked in my case. I was definitely the weirdo. Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of this little bit that I heard about like Scientology. This comedian was like, I don't know if I could ever get behind a religion where I can Google and find an image of your God.
That's funny.
Like I've never understood Scientology, but back to the Jimmy Carr thing I was going to say. He brought up a valid point one time live. He said, tonight I made fun of Catholics. He started naming everything he made fun of. He's like, oh yeah, on to the Muslims. I'm out of time. Good night. And everybody was booing him. And he's like, okay, the reason why I make fun of the Catholics, I make fun of a Catholic, they forgive me. I make fun of a Muslim, they blow shit up. I don't know if you've been keeping up with history. Yeah, so when's your next special? You working on one, or are you taking a break?
Yeah, I'm working on some stuff right now. Just trying to. I mean, I'm trying to write, and I got a pilot and some TV stuff I'm pitching, and I'm working on a horror script, comedy horror film that I'm writing, and so a lot of focus is on that. I'll probably do a special in 2025. I want to do something that's kind of geared around kind of just my life and story, and just sobriety and religion and different things. Make it a little deeper, a little more family centric. But yeah, you should see something hopefully in 2025. So
sweet, because I love your dry bar thing. I was
thanks,
watching
man.
your dry bar special. I love it. You killed it.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, that's not an easy crowd, I tell you. That's just like Provo, and that the front row is like 100 years old. I was like, why would you set the old people up front when we're all trying to tape something, like film something? Like, what are you doing?
They don't even understand if they understood the jokes, they can't hear them. Like, what are they?
Yeah. And they're the only ones that didn't give me a standing ovation because they couldn't stand. Like it was like 4 guys. I got a standing O, and the 4 guys didn't stand. I was like, really? They can't stand up that fast.
Well, you could either have that reaction, or are you familiar with the time Norm Macdonald had an entire audience walk out on him, except for like 4 people?
I love Norm. Man. He was great.
Then you'll love this if you've not
Yeah.
heard this story yet. Norm Macdonald, he was invited to the state of Iowa,
Okay.
which, if you're not familiar with Iowa, the only thing Iowa has is Slipknot. You go you go to he went to Iowa, and he was supposed to perform in the college stand-up comedy. And he was not told, but he was given a letter from SNL from the governor of Iowa. Hey, this is a family night. Norm allegedly didn't read the letter. Also, when he went on stage, he was the headliner. He didn't read the room. He came out in a crowd full of older people and children and a few college students, and he said, so I've been watching porn more than I fuck my wife. Like, for instance, I saw this pig fucking this woman, and I felt so bad for the pig because he starts off fucking this beautiful woman, and then the next night he's back to fucking pigs. And everybody was just fucking crowding the exit doors. And
That's
he turned
amazing.
around and saw this, and in classic Norm fashion, he didn't stop. He just got worse. And
Yeah.
worse.
I have a feeling he read that letter.
Too.
Yeah,
Because
he
he
read that
took
letter.
that letter and he put it on the bulletin board of accomplishments in the SNL office.
That's hilarious.
And when Lauren asked him about it, allegedly, Norm said, hey, am I fired? And they're like, no. Well, I got 49 other states to go. So, and he showed up to a golf tournament.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, colleges are rough, man. It's like you never know, what situation you're going to be in and like where you can go or how far you can push it. I did a college one time, and it was like a bunch of African American societies, like organizations and groups of students, like from MIT, Harvard, Yale, and then they met in like one space, and it was like 3,000 people or whatever. And all the comics were black, except me. I was the token white guy, and it was just like it was Artie Fuqua, Harris Stanton, this guy called Sugar Bear, and it was like all these, Sugar Bear, like a BET kind of comic. And so I went up and I was crushing for like 16 minutes, supposed to do like 25 or 20 or something. And so I get up, and my grandfather lived his whole life on a Native American reservation. He was Choctaw out of Durant, Oklahoma. So I was kind of in this moment where it was just kind of like, Native Americans really don't get any sort of like social love. It's like at the time we were on football helmets and nobody cares. We're kind of a cartoon character. So I kind of did this joke. It was on, I said, Native Americans were killed, enslaved, their land was stolen from them. At least black people got to travel. And that was my big joke. And everybody just started booing me. All these kids were just going crazy. I mean, it was like 3,000 boos, and I was doing like Elvis moves. I was like kind of embrace the boos. And then I tried to like whip it around. I couldn't really get it. And then afterwards I get off stage, there's like a school journalist that wants to talk to me about it, and then I go off on the plight of Native Americans and everything. But it was just like this horrible, whatever. And then literally a month later, I did the same joke, and I did it on Showtime. They were doing the show called White Boys in the Hood, and it was like white comics doing black jokes in front of black crowds. And so that was a thing. Like we were all Eminem comics or something. And so I got up and I did the joke, and it got an applause break. And it was just like, that's a shit. I went from booed to an applause break on television. And so it was like, you just never know, where something's going to go. But I tell you, colleges, it's like, it's a crapshoot. You're either going to have cool kids or, when Carlin did colleges, it was great. That's when colleges were like, where the free thinkers were. Now college students, it's the opposite. It's
They're
like
the ones that want to cancel you.
Yeah. But when Carlin did he did like a special on campus and stuff. And like his whole thing was colleges, and that's kind of how he got big. And so it's not that way now. It's like, that's the last thing you want to do as a college crowd, compared to the way it used to be. But the 60s and 70s, it was like colleges were great.
That kind of reminds me and adds emphasis to a point that Carlin had in an interview I watched. He was giving advice to comics, an interviewer, and he's like, keep this in mind. And it's pretty much what you said too. Fuck the audience. do what you're going to do, because what sucks or fails in one audience will be great in front of another one. And also, boos are better than silence.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you get your check.
You get a reaction.
As long as you get that check, you're fine.
As long as you don't offend the person that organized it.
But if it's always booze and you're not getting checks, you need to rein it in a little. But a boo once in a while is okay. Just don't make it a habit. So those young comics out there, like this is good advice if you're famous like Carlin. But but if you're just starting out, let's take the booze in a little. Let's one boo show one boo show a year, you're okay.
Could you imagine doing a special and that happening? You just get fucking. That's got to be a
I've seen specials that didn't go well that were hilarious. Mitch Hedberg, man, his special, like, he tanked, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, but Hedberg was one of those comedians that even him tanking is some of the best material you'll see a comic do.
Yeah, for us, but not that crowd that was there, you know. And so, yeah, when you're a true comedy fan and you see that, yeah, but the audience that was watching him in that theater was not that audience, and so it's great to watch. I mean, it wasn't getting like laughs from the back of the room. He was getting a lot of silence, and so it's like they expected somebody to just jump around and hump the stool, and that's not what they got with Mitch. And so it was like, and he literally there's two versions of it. There's the one, because I think he did 2 shows that night, and there's one where it's like, I don't know if it aired. It's on the DVD, like they used to do DVDs with like the double disc or whatever. And so this is kind of the one that didn't air on Comedy Central, but he's kind of having a breakdown, and it's phenomenal. Like, if you're a comedy fan, it's great. If you don't know anything about comedy, you're like, what's wrong with this guy? But if you love comedy, you're like, this is amazing.
And for all you guys, he had a breakdown, not like Michael Richards, like a different kind of breakdown.
He was close to saying the N-word. I mean, he was like this close.
Well, the thing with Mitch, though, is when a joke fails, it's hilarious, because I think it was the same special. He told a joke about Smacky the Frog, that funny bit about Smacky, and he's like, nobody laughed, but I thought it was funny, so fuck you, I'm keeping it.
Yeah. Well, when he sits down on the stairs and he's like doing comedy to the wall, I guess all that stuff is great,
And that's just him picking on the crowd, but nobody like when you're in the audience and you're not a fan of that type of comedy. That's like, I went and saw Stephen Wright.
Oh, I love Steve. I've seen him too. He's great. Yeah.
He's amazing, but if you're not his crowd, he has a select crowd.
Well, he's amazing. Yeah. It's funny. Even he knows how much of that he can do. Like, when I don't know when you saw him, but when I saw him, he did 30 minutes of like Stephen Wright, and then he picked up a guitar and kind of, did he do the guitar?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like he does the Stephen Wright, all that great stuff. I was born C-section. So when I leave the house, I go through the window, all that great stuff, just very funny jokes. And then I think he has to kind of spice it up a little bit with the guitar. And
did he do the airport joke when you saw him?
I don't know. It was years ago, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah. He told this one joke. He was kind of messing with the crowd. He was like, so I got my luggage mixed up at the airport, so I'm not really wearing my clothes tonight. Like the other week, I was wearing a dress, and that was before my luggage got mixed up.
Yeah. I think he did something like that. Yeah.
And the crowd was like confused, and he's like, "That's not like the other material now, is it?" And they went back into Stephen Wright material.
Yeah. But yeah, he's great. He's I learned how to write jokes by listening to I Have a Pony, that CD that he did. It was fantastic, because it's like he's the perfect just misdirect, just there's no fat on the joke. It's a perfect joke. It's like he's just so perfect at the joke writing itself. So that's how I learned, just listening to that over and over. I was like, my brain was able to wrap my head around how you write a joke through listening to a lot of Stephen Wright.
And his lack of delivery is what makes his delivery perfect. He just
Well, he was originally terrified, and he just, like, when he started doing stand-up, and then it just kind of stuck. And it's like he just, all that is real. He was kind of just this introvert that was in front of audiences, and like he just kind of like took it all in, and that's what ended up coming out. And then they were like, "That's great, keep it, whatever that is." Do it. And so that's what he did, and it's fantastic.
Mitch Hedberg actually drew inspiration from him.
Sure, of course. Yeah. There's guys beyond, before him, Jack Benny and Henny Youngman, and there's guys that are doing, just Dangerfield was doing these kind of structured jokes, but like but Steven made it weird, and then Hedberg kind of made it fun and hip and all that stuff. So yeah,
Like the hippie version of Stephen
yeah,
Wright in a way.
yeah, yeah.
And the cool thing about Stephen Wright is one of his best jokes, and he never told it on a stage, but for comedy fans, they would appreciate this. He released I Have a Pony, right? 30 years later, well, 25 years later, he released his second album, I Still Have a Pony. He waited 25 years to release his second special.
Yeah.
That's a lot of years of material, bro.
Yeah, yeah. Or is it? Maybe not. He's probably doing that tight 30 for like 20 years. Most comics are.
I noticed that when I saw Steven, though. He had some new material,
Yeah.
but like it was mostly the same shit, which
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
mean, it's the greatest hits, you know. I mean, that's what's funny about comedy. It's like I've been in situations where I released an album or something, and then somebody bought the album. They came back to a show, and I was doing a lot of the material, and they would be like, "Why are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, you don't do that with bands.
Yeah.
A band could just do a hit, and you want to hear it over and over. But when a comic does a joke you've heard before, it's like it's sin or something of comedy. It's like, well, a good joke is a good joke. It's like if you want to keep it, keep it. But I feel like there's this weird thing with stand up. People feel like you can't repeat jokes.
Exactly. And what's weird is you do have those freak show comedians like George Carlin, where the way he would write is he would tour the material, do the special, and then he'd take all that material and not use it again. And then
Yeah, I mean, I'm a part of tours. I open for Nate Bargatze, and that's what he does. He's been this is like his sixth special, and it's like we tour, we go out, and we hit all these roads and these theaters and arenas and all this stuff, and he just does a new hour after he tapes a special. He starts the new hour again. So there's some of these guys that are just like the next level, and he's
freaks of
definitely one of those
nature.
guys. Yeah.
And what's crazy about Carlin, he even said that there's some material hidden away somewhere that he's never done because he'll just write shit down and put it in a filing cabinet.
Yeah.
And then he'd grab it later to add to a special if he couldn't think of anything to come up with for that special. And I'm like, that is fucking crazy.
It's crazy. And then, and then there's something, that's funny because it's like, I think it's important when you're starting out as a comic that you see the realism of where you can go and what comedy is and who's able to do stuff and who's not. And it's like, when you're famous, like I've seen a lot of, like Chappelle and guys like that, Chris Rock and stuff. And it's like when you're famous, you already have this fame. The audience is a little forgiving of material that's not quite polished and worked out. But when you're brand new and you're trying to do a brand new joke, they don't know you. And then you're trying to do a joke that's a little clunky, they give a little less love. But I tell you, when Chappelle's just up there just babbling, it's like people find it funnier than if another guy was doing that wasn't famous. And so it's
Because you're
interesting. Once you
seeing
get your fame, you could really like start to kind of be prolific and on another level because they're coming to see you because they already like you. But when they don't like you, it's like sometimes you got to keep that closer because it's like you need to keep that joke in your pocket that always works because they don't give you that grace of you being a famous person they know. So that's it's kind of dual side where it's like it's important to write and do whatever. Because my whole thing is like if I do an album or a special, something that's going to be new or whatever. But if it's if it's a club and I'm doing a VFW or an Elks Lodge or some shitty gig somewhere and the audience is rough, I'm gonna pop out those greatest hits because it's like I'll try that new stuff that I'm working on to be a better comic and all that. But when that crowd is rough and they're 80 years old and whatever's happening in the room, I'm gonna give them some greatest hits for sure. So stuff that I know is gonna work. So I'm okay with somebody doing that as long as it's it's not you're not repeating yourself on specials or whatever. I think it's okay to repeat jokes.
Yeah, as long as you're not like telling one joke and then a couple more and then tell the same joke. You just
Yeah, well that's why I don't drink anymore. I used to do that. You'd be like, I just told this joke 3 times, didn't I? Yep.
It's like I saw this it was from like an improv, so it was fine that he did it at an improv because he wasn't really paid for it, I don't think. But Theo Vaughn showed up at a improv, and I don't know if you know who Theo is.
I do.
He's the dude with the mullet.
I do. Yeah.
He showed up and he's like, right now probably wouldn't be a good time to say that I just took mushrooms. And he did the whole he did his whole 15 to 30 minutes high on shrooms. I'm like, that is fucking wild.
Yeah,
But whatever works for you.
I think he's sober now though, but that must, yeah.
Robin Williams used to do specials on coke, so I guess whatever your ailment is.
All of the pretty much 70% of the comedians in the 80s did comedy on coke. Like that was, yeah,
So
that
the
was pretty
wrestlers.
norm. Yeah, wrestling, stand up, very similar lifestyle. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, my friend David Morris and another one, Jack Wright, they're local comedians, and they are both pro wrestlers or former pro wrestlers.
Okay.
So they kind of go hand in hand, comedy and wrestling. You have to get the crowd to either like you or hate you.
Yeah, well, the hate thing is a little. I think you could do a little more of that in wrestling. I mean, the being a villain on stage and still getting paid is not as easy to do.
It's hard
Yeah.
unless you're 1980s Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah, yeah. There's some guys doing that stuff, but it's it's definitely you want to be a little likable and stand up. I think that's something you got to kind of work towards.
Yeah, you got to
If
blur the
you want
line.
to be a villain in comedy, at least be in a movie or something. You got to be a little famous. You can't just like out of the gate be hated. And I see a lot of that. I see a lot of the young guys just doing all these Hitler jokes and trying to be whatever. And you're just like, all right, dude. It's like, do you want to make a living or do you want to be king of the open mic? You gotta make that choice a little bit.
You got to find a way to get the crowd to laugh at you, but also don't lose yourself.
And you got to get credits. You got to get on television. You have to build that. And if you're not willing to do that, then I think you're doing yourself a disservice because once you get your fame or whatever, you can just do whatever you want. I mean, Chappelle does that. Like like his first special compared to what he does now is completely different. Like Killing Me Softly is like, it's a straight stand-up set. And then now he's, just going off and not caring that he's offending people. And, and it's a different kind of energy because he's so famous and he can just kind of do what he wants.
He just improvises at this point. He just goes up there and rants.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot, some of it's thought out and written or whatever, but yeah, a lot of it is what he's feeling at the time for sure.
And what I love about Chappelle is they tried canceling him, but now he has an NBC deal. Like they gave him like a multi-million-dollar deal on TV. I'm like, that's a weird type of cancellation. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes the fan base it's all about a fan base. And so if you have a fan base, they'll stick with you, and that's the thing is like his fan base has stayed with him. Who's the guy that got fired from Saturday Night Live? Shane Gillis.
Gillis.
Yeah, it's like guys like that. It's like it's like they build this base, and so the industry's not able to cancel them because they know that this audience is going to embrace them, and so they kind of give in a little, and they're like, well, yeah, he's kind of inappropriate, and yeah, he offends a certain group of people, but this audience is going to watch our shows and support and pay money. So it's like in the end, it's all about the dollar. And if they think that there's an audience for that person, they don't care if they offend people. They really don't. It's like they can cancel all they want. If that person, that actor, that comic is making money, they don't give a shit.
So if you had to construct a Mount Rushmore of comedy,
yeah,
who would you put on it?
Let's see. I would I put Lenny Bruce. I put Carlin. I put Pryor, and I gotta put a woman on there because I think women's don't get the love. Probably Joan Rivers, maybe.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah.
Because she was the queen of fucking raunchy.
And I saw her live too in a small space. It was like probably like a 200-seater. And she picked on me, made fun of me. It was great. It was like I had a great time. She was great. So yeah, it'd be something like that. I mean, in my opinion, it should be like 20 guys on on that mountaintop, as far as where it's at now. But that would probably be me, my main list.
Well, they all shape comedy into what it is now.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, Bill Hicks would be definitely be a guy that would be a honorable mention. That guy did a lot of great. And Kinnison too.
I love Bill Hicks's stuff.
Yeah, Bill Hicks is great. I think Kinnison would be on there. It's
his
tough.
bit on Elvis was fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, he's great. It's so good. Yeah, I've seen all that stuff. It's so good.
So, who's your current favorite comedians, if you got any?
Myself.
Oh, you would
gotta love yourself. Gotta love yourself. Now, I don't watch a lot of comedy. Working with I work with everybody, so it's I get to see great people. Like I think Nate Bargatze's doing something that is truly kind of it crosses kind of this thing between you know clean comedy and just a regular great comic, and so I think he's doing something really special. So watching Nate has been great. um as far as current guys, I don't know if I'm watching anybody that I really I like I like Cat Williams, I like black comedy, I like just something I'm not doing. I like it's the opposite of me that I enjoy. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's anybody like that too much that I'm just really getting into because I don't want to lift anybody. So I have to be careful watching too much comedy because sometimes it gets in your brain and you're just like you're on stage and you're like, oh shit, did I just do a Gaffigan joke? Or so it's like I don't watch a lot of stand up, but I think there's definitely some great guys out there.
And then you have comedians who accidentally steal jokes when they don't even see the special. I've heard that happen before, where they accidentally use a joke that they didn't
Yeah.
even realize was already used.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Well, that has to do with like, because when I first started stand-up comedy, it's like I went down just, this rabbit hole of comedy knowledge. And I read every autobiographical, stand-up book. I listened to every piece of comedy I could listen to. I watched all the specials. I had like a whole box set of the Evening at the Improvs. I watched Johnny Carson's. I watched anything with a stand up I watched. So I have a pretty good historical knowledge of stand up. And I think when guys start comedy, they don't care enough about what came before them. And they just get up there and they do that joke and they don't even realize it because they don't have the knowledge of what stand up is. It's like which drives me crazy. It's like if you're a guitarist and you don't know who BB King is or Jimi Hendrix or Greg Allman or like if you don't know guys that have been playing before you, it's like you're not going to be a good guitarist. And so, in the beginning, it's like, I think, like I said, after a while, I don't watch as much because I don't want to be too inspired because I had to find my voice. But I think you should have a general knowledge of the old school comedy world.
Yeah, it's basically finding your own voice, but you also have to combine some elements of other comedians, like the way they deliver and shit, and like find your own way.
Yeah, well, you find you study it in a way that in the beginning, differently than you look at it when you're, experienced and you've kind of made your mark and all that stuff. But yeah, in the beginning, it's like you don't know what you're doing, so you got to like. It's good to watch somebody, tell a story on stage, and like a Ron White or whoever, and you're just like, oh, that's how you tell a story, and like you get to this thing and you nicknames and whatever, you just figure out a way to kind of like figure it out. So it's good to watch it because you just don't know the ABCs of it in the beginning.
So with you though, have you ever thought about doing something like Kill Tony, like going to Texas and doing all that, or is that like,
Uh, no, that's not something I want to do. I'm not. That's not really my scene. But I think it's cool that they do that, and that's cool. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna get on stage and have somebody rip me apart. That's not what I'm about. So yeah, I'm too good a comic to put myself in a situation like that. So, but
they're like all Simon Cowells, and you're
yeah,
just
no thanks. No thanks. That's it's a younger comics game. That's something I want to do another special. I want to do other thing. I'm touring. Like I don't, it's not something. I'm not saying I'm too good for it. It's just not something I want to do.
But if you get invited, would you go?
No, I'd be a guest. I'd be a judge. Yeah, I'd be a
Did you
judge.
see the episode where fucking Ric Flair was a judge and he walked out?
Yeah, I didn't. That's hilarious though. Yeah.
He was hammered and he was like, I don't make fun of people for donating their time, and he got all upset they were roasting the guy. And
Yeah,
Tony's like,
I'm with Rick on that. I'm not a big fan of roasting this whole wave of new comedy where you guys just like shit on each other. I'm not into. It's like
"Alright."
that's what green rooms are for. You don't put that out there in the public. It's like I feel like there's this thing that happens where roasting is popular and roast battles and all that stuff. And I respect it. It's an art form to write a roast joke, and I respect I'm not saying that it's not comedy or anything. It definitely is, but I'm just not into it. I just get into a space that I'm just going to be too mean. And so I don't, I've almost died and been in psych wards and rehabs. I don't have time for your little jokes about me. You know what I mean? Like, I can be harder on myself than you'll ever be.
There's
So,
nothing that you can, I always tell people there's nothing you can say to me that I don't say within 2 inches of a mirror.
yeah. That's why 8 Mile's so great. It's like, at the end, he says everything the guy's gonna say before he says it, and it's such a great scene. It's just like, oh, you make the trailer trash and blah blah blah. And he said that's why I love that ending. It's so fantastic because he's like, yeah, I'll get to it before you do. Now what? Now what do you got, bitch? And so I love that.
That's how I always handled bullies when I was in school, because they tried insulting me and then I'd come up with a better insult than them to myself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just not something I want to do. I want to do some other things in my comedy
Fair.
life, and that's not something I'm about. But
I guess
kudos to him though. Kudos.
I guess
to him.
the old school roasts is what made that shit popular, like the Jeff Rosses and
Yeah, I mean, roasting is great. It's just not something that I'm drawn to. But I like some of the Dean Martin roast, and some of that stuff is interesting. But and there's funny. I mean, some of these people were great. A good friend of mine, he passed, but Greg Giraldo was a good buddy of mine and stuff. And he was the king of roasting. And in my opinion, he was one of the best. And so he was so good at it, and he was such a great comic. And so, guys like that, I felt elevated the art form, but I haven't seen anybody as good as Greg in a long time. I mean, Nikki Glacier was great on the Tom Brady, and there's been good people, but not to, I don't know. Greg was just something else. So.
I didn't know you was friends with Greg. That's really cool. I actually loved every time I watched the roasts. I just wanted to hear what either Greg or Jeff Ross had to say.
Yeah, he was fantastic. He was a really sweet guy and very just incredible comic. So it's a shame.
And that's what makes roasts great, though, is if they are genuinely a great guy, they're just you know they're coming from a good place.
Yeah,
some people it's hard to tell.
Sure. Yeah, where some people are just on there to get fame or whatever. It's like, they're not actually friends with the people they're roasting, and that's always kind of weird too.
That's like Greg had one joke that I remember hearing him say, and it wasn't that it was necessarily clever. It was just hilarious that he said it. He said, I'm at this roast, but I still don't see any. I'm going to punch somebody so we can see some fucking stars. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, he didn't have to do jokes. Just when he did the Larry the Cable Guy roast, he just like, why are you famous? Why are you famous? He just goes off on like, I don't understand. He kept saying that over and over. It was great. It was no joke. It was just this real place, this primal place of why he's, Greg was the next Bill Hicks, and this guy is loaded because he's tailoring this comedy to this specific group of people, and then like it just drove him crazy.
I'll be honest,
he brought that emotion, and it was fantastic.
I don't think I've seen a Greg Giraldo actual stand-up.
Oh, he's great. There's some albums that are great. Good Day to Cross the River is one of his best albums. That's a great album. And unfortunately, he had a short life, so he didn't get a lot of specials. But there's a Comedy Central hour special, I believe, and there's a few things out there. A half hour presents and Comedy Central.
If you're interested in coming back on, I would love to chat just about like Greg Giraldo stories and shit, because I love that man.
Yeah, he was great.
Comedy. I've never got to meet him or nothing, but
there's a book that's out that's really good, the Greg Giraldo story. I forget what it's called. I got it somewhere, but it's about his life. You want to check that out? I think it's on Amazon, but it's a good biography.
That's neat, bro. Yeah. I'm going to let you go, though. It's been a nice long chat, and I would love to have you back on. So let's schedule it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. And this was fun.
Of course, brother. Is there anything you want to say? Anything you want to promote? You got your link down here, by the way.
I got what?
I put your link down below.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks, buddy. Just you can catch me out there on the road. I'll be at the Looney Bin in Oklahoma next month. Be doing some other stuff. So just catch me on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Dustin_Chafin. I'm always posting stuff on my link tree, and you can find out where I'm at. But this is great, man. Appreciate it. I'm at some state fair with Nate Bargatze next week. So I don't know what that is.
Did you say you're performing at a psych ward?
I'm pretty excited. What's up?
Did you just say you're performing at a psych ward?
I did, but it wasn't stand up. It was just ODing in New York City, and I ended up there. Yeah, it
Is
was
that
a
the
rough
name of your
set.
new special,
was a rough
ODing in
set.
New York City?
It was a rough set, but there's definitely some comedy came from it.
Dude, I love your comedy, and I hope to have you back on soon,
Who
brother.
books the psych ward? I'll get you. I know a guy. If you comics want to know, I'll get you.
But it was nice chatting with you, brother. Thank you for coming on. You're always welcome to
Yeah.
come back on. Don't have to really be announced or nothing. This is just a
Great.
hangout that we're going to do for
I
now
love
on.
it. Thanks, buddy. That was a lot of fun. Appreciate you. Peace
Much
out.
love, brother. You have a good one.